me, it of course is none other than Jim and Matt, and we are here to talk about a bunch of things. Let's start with those of you who listen or watch the folks that do the Locked On podcast. A lot of friends over there, very good people, but sometimes they get it wrong. And today's Locked On, they went after your boy Kirby Smart and also Tennessee as to why they think that the SEC never wanted to play 9 conference games because they were afraid that they might lose to somebody like Appalachian State. Let me just throw this preface out there, folks. Georgia and Tennessee and all these people have nothing to do with this. The conferences have nothing to do with this. It is your keyboard warriors out there who feel compelled to weigh in on what they think should happen. And you know what? Don't pay attention to it. It ain't gonna happen. Georgia's not worried about it. Tennessee's not worried about it. The fans seem to be. Matthew, you are a Georgia man. I'm gonna throw it to you, sir.
Yeah, well, it's a simple matter of the fact that we're now in the time in the college football calendar where recruiting's over. Spring practices haven't started. We're still a couple months away from spring games themselves as well. So it's a relatively dead period in terms of the news cycle in college football. What happens when you have a relatively dead cycle in a sport where that's really the only thing that you're covering and talking about is you got to drum up news, you got to make clicks, you got to create headlines, right? And this is a really effective way to do that. This is one of those things. It's a trend. It's one of those stories that gets people's attention. It frustrates them. It gets them angry. Because when you really look at the basis of a lot of their claims is they don't have a very big leg to stand on, right? Like they're talking about this 2014 playoff, and they're talking about now. By the way, I would like it to be known that the 2014 playoff is something that was brought up and conceptualized by Tony Petitti. It's something that's been pushed for by the Big Ten. The SEC is now turning to back it because now they're moving to a 9-game schedule. And look, you can theorize or hypothesize as much as you want. The matter of the fact is that when you turn on the TV in April and they have that NFL draft, there's going to be more names called from the SEC than there is from the Big Ten. When you look at the high school recruiting rankings, there's going to be more SEC schools than there are Big Ten schools. I'm not going to sit here and comment on whether or not the conference themselves, who has a higher peak season and season out. Look, the Big Ten's top has been better than the SEC's the conference for the last 3 years. There's no debating that. But the simple matter of the fact is that now they're talking about the middle of the conference, and they have no numbers to stand on other than their belief, to be honest.
Yeah. As I said, when we were talking just a second ago, these are keyboard warriors, right? These are not the decision makers. These are not the people who are involved. Why does Tony Petitti? Why did he propose a 24, team playoff? Money. Yeah. I mean, let's be honest. Let's exactly call it what it is. Tony Petitti is a longtime television programmer.
Yeah.
If anybody knows what kind of bounty they could pull in from a 24, team playoff, which, oh, by the way, 23 of them would just come from the power conferences. One team would come from the group of 5 or 6, depending upon how you look at it these days. So, I get where Tony's coming from, right? But this shade that's being thrown by these keyboard warriors, look, believe me when I tell you, as they sit down this afternoon in Washington, we'll get to that in a few minutes. Tony Petitti and Greg Sankey talk probably more than most people would think. And, there is a mutual respect. The Big Ten hierarchy, meaning Petiti and his team, and Sankey and his team at the SEC, are far more close to being in lockstep than any of the fans want them to be.
Yeah. Well, look, this comes down. I think Tony Petiti deserves a lot of credit. He, when he conceptualized this 2014 playoff, everybody's like, "Well, that's nuts." I still think it is nuts. I'm not a fan of it, regardless
Mm-hmm.
of however many conference games who so
Mm-hmm.
and so is playing, right? But he worked it in his favor. It seemed like a nuts idea, especially for the SEC,
Mm-hmm.
and when they're playing 8 conference games. Like, it's just not it's too many teams, really. You took the exclusivity away, you took the regular season away from what was formerly the best regular season in sports. Um, but this was his idea, and how do you, when you conceptualize this, if this is something you really want to do, how do you go about it? Like, you have to have a plan. How do you make this happen?
Right.
And I can't sit here, like, I don't have Tony Petiti's whiteboard of a plan that he
Mm-hmm.
had, but getting the SEC to 9 games, because that's really what it feels like kind of happened, is they almost schoolyard bullied the SEC into playing 9 conference
Mm-hmm.
games. And when the SEC moves to 9 conference games, now with the type of schedule that these teams are going to play, it is more advantageous to go to a 2014 model, especially when you have a committee that does not value metrics. They value the loss column.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something where, people are complaining now about these non-conference matchups and these non-conference schedules. The college football playoff committees told you that it doesn't matter who you play in your
Right.
non-conference. You look at the last 3 national champions coming from the Big Ten. Who have they played? They played shithole State and Southwest
Mm-hmm.
shithole State, along with, maybe App State to go along with them. Like, they've played nobody. I mean, Indiana, they played Kennesaw State last year, and
Right.
Kennesaw State, like Old Dominion, I think, was somebody else that they played.
Yeah.
You go back to Michigan's 2023 season. I think their big non-conference game was like Northern Illinois.
Right.
Ohio State, it was like Grambling or something like that. So,
Mm-hmm.
these teams, you can sit here and you can complain about, oh, well, the SEC is canceling these things. The SEC is canceling these games that they've had scheduled
Mm-hmm.
because they've moved to this 9-game conference schedule, and they've seen, because the proof's in the pudding. You got 2 years of this 12-team thing, and you go back to 2023. Who you play in the non-conference, it doesn't matter. You can say, well, you're running for matchups. That's fine. Now you
Mm-hmm.
got to play another one. Like, it's not advantageous for these teams, if they want to be successful in the postseason, to go play that extra game. In the NFL, you don't have a team that's going to go play. Well, we're going to play 15 NFL games, but 2 of them are going to be non-NFL games.
Yeah, we're gonna play 2 college games.
Yeah, so it's just not. It doesn't make any sense. Like if I'm Alabama and I watched, or if this is the big one that happened in the offseason, when I'm Texas and I look at Indiana and I look at who they played in the non-conference schedule, and
Mm-hmm.
then I go to my schedule and I realize that, hey, we got knocked out of this thing because we had three losses.
Mm-hmm.
One of those losses, Ohio State. If we don't schedule Ohio State, we're probably in this thing.
Right.
It's a backwards way of thinking, but it's one that's been proved out through the committee's
Right.
selections over the past 2 years. So yeah, it's not advantageous to play those non-conference games. It's taking away from the consumer. But again, credit to Tony Petiti. He's the one that conceptualized it. And the best way to get the SEC on board with this 2014 playoff, get them to move to 9 conference games. That'll get this thing done.
Well, the other thing, as I said before, Tony Petiti is a television guy. It was Tony Petiti and Mike Oresco who sat down with the NCAA and came up with the 68 team March Madness fleet of games, and what they sold the NCAA. Because for those of you out there who don't know, approximately 80% of the revenue that runs the NCAA comes from their basketball contract with CBS and TNT. So believe me when I tell you that when they're looking for more inventory, which is what CBS and TNT thought, if we get more teams involved, that's more eyeballs involved. That's more people who have a vested interest in the, in the teams that are playing in these, this basketball tournament. You get the Cinderella situations. You get all the storylines that tick all the boxes that bring people to the. And I'm talking now about the casual fan, not the basketball fan, the casual fan that brings them all too. Because when they started this amazing situation, and look, nobody loves you know college, you know tournament type basketball more than I do. I mean, I loved it when I had to do the games and enjoyed every minute of it. So, but Tony wanted inventory. He said, the more we get in here, the better it's going to be for all of us. And that proved out to be right. Okay. The ratings were always good. The more Thursday and Friday has gotten so intense, people don't even go to work at sometimes, from that standpoint. So it wasn't bad, but there's always circumstances by which it doesn't work. And it may work in college basketball, but what the hell? When you have a 24 team playoff, what are you starting in August? How does that work?
Yeah, and I mean this was always the way that it was going to go. Is they sold the general populace,
Mhm,
and the problem is that the general populace is going to determine a good portion of your ratings. They
mhm,
sold them a fallacy that this was going to bring you better matchups week in and
mhm,
week out, and to an extent, it brings you some stuff. Maybe it
mhm,
really what they did is it started by minimizing these bowl games, and it
mhm,
all of it is in the pursuit of the almighty dollar.
mhm,
Because when that 14 playoff came out and when that phrase "who's in" came out,
mhm,
ESPN propped that playoff up on a pedestal. It's advantageous for ESPN to prop it up, given the deal that they have with the college
mhm,
football playoff and the money that they're paying for for those rights. They needed it to be profitable. But at the same time, it's advantageous for these conferences as well to chase after the dollar bill as well. Is you get sold something right to your face is like, hey, this is going to be really good for you. This is going to be really good for the
mhm,
consumer. When on the backside, what it really is these guys in these higher up positions, they're
mhm,
chasing after their money. You're not actually getting the better end of this deal.
mhm,
Rarely ever. It's a rental car or used car salesman.
mhm,
That's what they're giving you when they sell you these models. That's what they're giving you when they sold you on the 12-team playoff. It's this used car salesman. What they've done is they've dumbed down this sport to an extent. I mean,
mhm,
it, I think I've heard Josh Pay talk about it. And I think he's
mhm,
correct. And he thought it was going to dumb down some of the regular season
mhm,
matchups. And to an extent, it has a little bit, but it hasn't been as extreme as he and to be honest, I really expected it to be.
mhm,
But what I can now tell you is that yeah, I may not like Alabama, but guess what? If we're in a 24 team format and it's week 3 and Georgia loses to Alabama, I give
mhm,
10 shits less if that happens. Like
mhm.
it's not going to matter. I know we're going to go on, we're going to win 9 games, we're going to make a playoff. Like at that point, it just doesn't matter. Your regular season is gone, it's done for, and it just doesn't matter anymore. When you go to
Well,
a 24
yeah,
team, we're getting rid of conference championships as well. Those don't matter anymore.
right.
So,
Okay.
so
In theory of what you're talking about, right?
mhm.
In theory, um, is it not possible? Okay, the big game in Big Ten. Okay, and you could argue the most watched game of every year is Michigan Ohio State.
Yeah,
Okay, and that's not. I mean, that's tradition.
yeah.
You know, they're not always battling for the national championship. Um, so you got Michigan and you got Ohio State. If you go into these playoff situations, playoff scenarios, it's in theory you can end up playing the same team in a championship game. So let's say okay, so Michigan and Ohio State, you know, end up playing each other in the Big Ten championship game, and then they may face each other in the playoffs. So you get the potential of having two teams play each other 3 times in 1 year.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, we haven't been. I would say we've been a lucky roll of the dice these first 2 years of the 12-team format to not have that happen already.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we were. We were the Georgia and Texas seeding last year away
Right.
from, or not 2025, but in
Mhm.
2024 away from seeing them play three times, right?
Right. Hmm.
If Texas had landed in the right spot after losing that SEC title game, then we very reasonably could have seen that for a third
Hmm.
time. So these aren't matchups that are far off. You could have said the same thing about Alabama and Georgia this year if the seeding
Sure.
had been a little different as well. So we've just been like, whether it's by design from the committee or or just
Hmm.
pure chance, we haven't been far off from having a three-time matchup already. And
Hmm.
it's something that's legitimate. And it's something that in basketball it works. In
Hmm.
baseball it works. In football, this is a different sport than those other two sports and really any other sport
Hmm.
in collegiate athletics. It just does not work the same. And
Hmm.
playing a team three times, like, yeah, you see it in the NFL, but I don't like it in the NFL. Like, it's not something, oh, yay, I can't wait to watch the Broncos and the Raiders play three times or two times over the span of the past 4 weeks.
Hmm.
It's not something that excites, and it's something that the NFL has to do, right? The NFL has 32 teams. They've got a limited number of participants here. You got 126 FBS football teams. Is
Hmm.
we should not be in a scenario where we're looking down the barrel of two teams playing three times in one given season.
Well, the point that I take away from this is a point you brought up, and that is it. It basically makes the the conference the regular conference games irrelevant.
Yeah,
I mean, because and you're gonna see pretty much the same teams in that 24 list deal every time, 23 of them for sure.
yeah,
And so yeah, I get where Tony's going with it, mainly because of what they could get out of the money. And here's one of the reasons I know Tony was pushing that. The NFL's contract is coming up about the same time that the Big Ten SEC contracts are coming up. The amount of money that the um, the amount of money that the NBA got, which was $76 billion for that 11-year deal, the National Football League wants to break. I'm guessing somewhere in the 125 to 150 billion dollar range. Now that's you can't sustainable from a budget standpoint. I don't I don't see any metric where if Fox or even Disney, ABC, where they've got heavy duty cash, NBC, Universal, um, CBS, that's way above the amount of money they got to spend. Somebody's going to lose in this
hmm,
from a standpoint of because they'll craft the packages so that everybody gets a chunk of something, and
yeah,
they'll pay dearly for it. And the streamers are probably going to be the winners of all this.
yeah,
But that means that I keep getting this crap about the SEC is going to expand four more teams. The Big Ten is going to expand four more teams. No,
yeah,
it makes no sense. It makes absolutely no sense to feed two more mouths unless they bring some serious, something to the party.
yeah. Yeah, the financials are going to have to change in terms of what these conferences are getting in order for it to be advantageous to add more teams.
Right.
At that point, you're just sharing more of the pie with more people. Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't make a lot of sense financially for these conferences
Mhm.
to continue to expand right now. And you talked about the bidding wars and stuff like that. And really, again, what happens is when that happens is you look at it again and the consumer loses. That's the end all be all in this.
Mhm.
Is that when this whole thing started, it was sold as something that is going to be great for you, the consumer, and the product that you're getting is going to be so much better on a week in and week out basis. And it's not. That was bullshit. That was a lie from the start. But
Mhm.
everybody bought it and started eating it up and loved that shit. So they're like, yeah, let's keep it going. Let's make it bigger.
Mhm.
And that keeps happening. And you're going to look at it and, in 10 years, when I gotta subscribe to 8 different streaming services to watch the football games that I want to watch,
Right.
and I'm losing because I'm paying, hand over fist for this shit.
Right.
It's me that's lost in the end for watching what is now, relatively speaking, a subpar product to what college football used to be.
Mm-hmm. Well, we talked about that yesterday with what Miami and Florida State, Notre Dame, Penn State, when they were independents, what they could do. And it's a very fascinating, situation from that standpoint. Um, and we'll see how it plays out. But I do think that uh, I do hope, I think I would put it that way, that cooler minds prevail and they don't go into this 24 game or 20, whatever it is, 24 game playoff, because then you just totally, you've diluted the product to the point where it's so, as you said, irrelevant.
It's
I
unrecognizable.
don't, I don't particularly care at this point. I mean, I'm a fan. I, I don't, I have no reason to want a 2014 playoff because that will mean um, that I have to keep track of what's going on the entire time. The season itself, how can you play 12 to 13 games, right?
Yeah.
And if you're going to play potentially 4 more games.
Yeah, it's something there where you're now looking at is if you continue to expand this thing and you're talking about playing these extra games at the end of the season,
Mhm.
is now you're talking about we're going to like shorten the regular season, right? And that's when those lower tier of schools lose as well. Prior to this thing moving to where
Mhm.
they separate off and there's a cluster of these Division 1 teams that are off on their own and they've created their
Right.
own football power essentially. But if you start canceling these non-conference games and these programs that they're playing, like Georgia's going to pay some of these programs that are going to come in and play them in like week 1 and week 2. Ohio State's going to pay them. Michigan's going to pay them. They make a good check for doing that. That's
Mhm.
part of how their football program sustain themselves.
Mhm.
They lose. The consumer loses. Like it's such an ass backwards model that
Mhm.
they've sold us on, and now we're so far down the road that it really feels like the 24 team is inevitable. It's just a matter of when,
Right.
not if, right?
Right. Mhm.
So it's just, I mean, it's going to be something that is unrecognizable
Mhm.
in probably 5 to 10 years here. But I would like to believe that I'm still going to enjoy the sports. Like what makes college football unique is supposed to be the traditions and the crowds and the
Mhm.
rivalries and stuff like that. I hope that continues to stay the same. I don't know a reason why it wouldn't. But in terms of the week in and week out product, it's going to look completely different. I mean, I was somebody who back in high school, I mean, I loved recruiting. Like
Mhm.
I called out sick for signing day. I followed
Mhm.
it as closely as I could all year long. And
Mhm.
now I can't tell you what's going on in recruiting just because I don't care. Like it doesn't
Right.
matter what's happening. Is say I follow a kid's recruitment. He's going
Mhm.
to commit and decommit 7 times. Let's see, he actually gets on campus. Well,
Right.
now he's got to make it through spring ball and hope he doesn't transfer after spring ball. All right, he made it through spring ball. All right,
Yeah.
now we're into the fall camp. Okay, he didn't get the starting spot. All right, he's already in the portal. It's December.
Right.
So it's just not something that's worthwhile. Is now you've got to follow these rosters on more of a year in and year out basis, and there's still recruiting sites, and there's still people that love it, and I get that. But
Mhm.
recruiting itself now is unrecognizable. The sport of college football is continuing to change, and I
Mhm.
fear it's for the worst.
Yeah. 2 things on what you said about um, about the situation that we're now at hand, which struck me funny. Um, the the state of Florida, and I'm sure other states same way, but the state of Florida mandates that the University of Florida in Florida State, Miami is a private school. They don't have to do anything they don't want to do. Play at least one Florida school per year, other than obviously Florida State and Florida. So they did that to prop up UCF, to prop up USF, to prop up FIU, to prop up FAU. You know, it, in theory, it was a good idea, because they're saying, okay, you may, you guys have to play your cousins here because they need to get, the exposure. And you brought up the other point. It's nice to take a $500,000 check back, to you with you to wherever you're playing.
Yeah.
So that's all good. Now, last night, something I found incredibly, you're talking about the recruiting in the portal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Last night, I was watching USF's basketball team play Memphis. It was senior night in Memphis. One of the kids who, look, and again, I don't begrudge any of these people to take senior night type things.
Mm-hmm.
One of the kids played 1 year at Memphis, and he was celebrating his senior night. Another kid was celebrating his senior night, okay? But he's in the transfer portal. He's got 1 more year to play. So he's celebrating, he's celebrating the fact that he's got Memphis is giving him a senior night, and he's not going to even be at Memphis next year.
Yeah. Yeah, it just feels like, and I have no problem with the transfer portal. I have no problems with NIL. That feels like it is quality of life improvements for the athletes that they have long deserved. I don't have problems. What I have problems is it's unregulated. And that's what leads you into a little bit of or not a little bit. That's what's led you into the landscape that you're in now. And one final point, because you'd mentioned at the outset, they had talked about the SEC, supposedly ducking the smoke when it comes to scheduling. There's only one conference in America that's required to play 10 Power 5 games on its schedule, and that's the SEC. They require the 9 conference games, and then they require 1 non-conference Power 4 game as well. Big Ten doesn't do that. The ACC doesn't do that. Big 12 doesn't do that. It's just the SEC, and that's something that they did because some of their member institutions have those in-state rivalries. You have Louisville, Kentucky. You have Georgia Tech. You have Florida State. Like those are legitimate rivalries and matchups that those occur, and that's not something that Ohio State has to do. Ohio State doesn't have to play. They don't have somebody in state that's a Power 4 opponent that they have to play year in and year out. They're not required by their conference bylaws or scheduling rules to play another Power 4 opponent. So what it is really when people get up there and they pound the table and they say, well, the SEC's running and the Big Ten's so much deeper and better, is you can say that, but you really have no facts or claims to back that up. Other than your just profound belief that it is such.
Down the street here at 4:00 at the White House, President Trump's going to host a White House meeting on college sports landscape, and he's gathered a number of people together to be involved in this roundtable discussion. The chair of the discussion, Trump is the chair of the discussion, but Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and Randy Levine, who's the president of the New York Yankees, are vice chairs in this invitation only. Jim Phillips will be there from the ACC, Brett Yormark from the Big 12, Tony Petitti from the Big 10, Craig Sankey from the SEC, Gloria Navarez, who's the commissioner of the Mountain West, chose not to go. And Notre Dame will be represented, as well as the American. I don't know if Tim Pernetti's going to go, but I assume it's Tim Pernetti. There would be no reason for them to send, anybody else. Others who are included in this is Nick Saban, Mac Brown, Urban Meyer, Tim Tebow, Charlie Ward, Adam Silver, Tiger Woods, Condoleezza Rice, and they're all on Oh, and media executives, excuse me, from ESPN and Fox have been invited.
Ooh, media executives. That's what we need in the room.
Yeah.
They got us in a shithole in the first place.
Yeah, they didn't have, well, to some extent,
Partially.
yeah, to some extent, the this whole thing, the jumping, the big, rating of conferences, there was dabbling in it before, right? But I'm going to go to John Swofford and what he did to the Big East was criminal. I mean, they basically tanked the conference, and they knew they were going to do it.
Yep.
And so, I mean, as much as you can blame ESPN, you can blame Fox, you can blame, any media outlet you want. You need to have a partner in this disaster. And unfortunately, there have been conference commissioners who saw an opportunity to say, if we add, A, B, and C, then we're going to make even more money.
Mm-hmm.
And the fallacy out there, which people seem not to actually want to pay attention to, is the fact that there's not an unlimited amount of money for these people to pay. Okay, which is why when I said the next contract for the Big Ten and for the SEC, it's not going to be. They're not going to double the contract. Okay, there'll be an incremental bump, but that incremental bump is not going to support, like we said before, the addition of 4 or 5 more teams. It makes no sense. It's not going to happen. And I've heard a number of people say, well, they're going to tank the ACC for the benefit of the Big Ten, the SEC, and the Big 12. And it's like, that would make no sense. You've got control of one conference, one of the biggest in the country, the SEC. You've got most control over the ACC, and then you've got partial control of the Big 12. If I'm ESPN, why am I feeding, allowing, the crumbling of the ACC for the benefit of my two rivals?
Mm-hmm.
It makes no sense. And then you've got the people saying, well, the SEC, the ESPN has decided they want to move, Clemson or Florida State or whatever from the ACC to the SEC. Well, again, I mean, it sounds okay. It sounds plausible, but it also doesn't make sense because if the SEC doesn't want them, they're not going to take them. And I don't think the SEC wants another school in South Carolina. They don't need them. I don't see where they need another team in Florida. And so will they take 2 teams? If they do, I would imagine it would go to North Carolina, probably be one.
Mm-hmm.
That actually both conferences might be looking at. Whoever chooses and thinks they might take Virginia, which is a possibility, is going to have trouble because the legislature in the state of Virginia blocked, when Virginia Tech went over there, they've, they were basically behind making sure that both schools in the state of Virginia stayed in the same conference. So there's all kinds of bizarre, machinations on the horizon here, and I think that those who feel that that there's going to be a lot of exchanging of conferences and realignment of all that situation. Right now, I can tell you that, and I've spoken to 5 athletic directors in the Big Ten, and they're ruining the day that they added the 4 West Coast teams. It has been nothing but a nightmare, scenario.
Yeah, because people look at it from the football side. Like that's the way everybody views this conference
Mhm,
realignment stuff. It is purely a football lens, is the way
mhm,
people look at it. And it's just such a short-sighted view of the entire what really is all encapsulating
mhm,
in the overall conference realignment thing. You talked about the Olympic sports and what they do. I mean, you can go look at UCLA's record on the West Coast and
mhm.
UCLA's record on the when they have to travel over to the East Coast for those
Right.
Big Ten basketball games right now. Go look at their men's basketball record. If they were in the Pac-12 right now, this would be a team that's probably sitting somewhere around the 3 or 4 line.
Mhm,
But they have to travel, and they have not done well when they've traveled either.
mhm.
But when they played at home, they've been fantastic. They've been really good. So it's it's something it's something that people just didn't think about it. They saw the big shiny conference realignment, and they saw the football matchups they were going to get. We get Oregon, Ohio State, we get Oregon, Penn State, all these matchups, and that's fine and dandy. But there's so much stuff on the backside that people just did not think about when it comes to this conference realignment. That's really hurting a lot of these schools and these conferences overall.
Well, one of the things that I've been vocal about all the way down the line when, you going all the way back to the Big East, when I mean, you're taking the game away from the fans.
Hmm.
The average fan is not going to, if I'm an average fan and I'm a UCLA fan, we just talked about UCLA, I'm not going to drive to Piscataway, New Jersey to see them play Rutgers. Okay.
Yep.
I'm not going to play, they beat Nebraska the other night. Okay. One of the coaches that I spoke to and a couple of the ADs said that what they're finding out is that these kids are exhausted
Hmm.
being on planes going, wherever they may be going, that academically they're having issues.
Yep. Yeah.
And they're seeing, and one more point, and this is a point that I think really needs to be brought out, the amount of injuries that occur because on you're traveling on a day that you might be practicing, you're playing more than you normally would play.
Hmm.
A 24 game playoff is going to hurt players and in some cases take them out of the potential of playing in the NFL because they got injured in a game that didn't have to be played.
Yep. Yeah, and we talked. I talked about it with the transfer portal and
Mhm.
NIL. What is it? It's quality of life stuff for these
Right.
athletes, right? And it's a term that the NCAA hid behind, but it's something that's still applicable. Is these are still student athletes? Like
Mhm.
not all of them are going to be one and done college basketball players. Not all of them are going to go to the NFL after 3 years. In fact,
Mhm.
I think people oftentimes have a misconception of how many juniors actually leave to go to the NFL draft. It's a much lower number than I think people realize. So these are kids that are still, they're still in school. Like the degree is still very important.
Mhm.
I'm in school. I'm about to start a profile story. I'm
Mhm.
working on a piece talking about, one I think it's like 1.9% of college athletes turn pro in
Right.
whatever sport they're doing. There's a large percentage of these people, 98% of these kids that need these degrees, and they're suffering because of these travel schedules and stuff like that. And why are they struggling, right? And it
Mhm.
goes back to that chase after the almighty dollar. These kids are suffering, these fans are suffering because these conference executives get to sit back and line their pockets.
The other thing is the fallacy that football is the sport that brings the money in from the alumni base. Okay. Phil Knight is has been heavily involved, obviously, in Oregon sports forever. Phil Knight was a track guy. He wasn't a pro. He wasn't a football guy. Kevin Plank over at Under Armour played lacrosse. Okay. So I know that, and this is one of the things that drives me nuts. I know that the football, maniacs out there look at these Olympic sports and go, "Well, what the hell? What good is that?" Well, here's what's good at that. As you just said, very few people turn pro. Well, less than 2%. Okay, those guys and women who play the Olympic sports actually play eventually, sometimes in the Olympics. Number one. Number two, they tend to be the biggest, spenders on the university because they actually got a degree. They actually did there. They went there to go to school to play. Yeah, did they get to play a sport? Great, yeah, but not a sport they're going to go professional in. So you're missing your audience. You've taken the teams away from where you can drive and watch them. You've abused them as student athletes. You've totally you still have, all the universities, don't matter who they are, still have activities fees which go on top of your tuition. There's not a single thing that these realignments have done to benefit the university players themselves, or the student athletes, we'll call them, or the university, the uh, or the people in the Olympic sports. You've screwed over everybody except the football team.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's again, that's where people and the general populace, like that's where the short-sighted part is everybody looks at it through a purely football lens, and if they're not looking at it through a football lens, they're looking at it from the second most beneficial, and that's the men's basketball lens.
Mm-hmm.
Like those are the only two lenses that people look at this stuff through from an outsider's perspective. I can't blame them. If this isn't your job or you don't have a big passion about it,
Mm-hmm.
then yeah, you don't really have a reason to dig into the weeds and understand. You have to take it at face value for what it is, and what you see it as is football, and what you see it as is basketball,
Mm-hmm.
right? But there's so many consequences that lie underneath the surface for people
Mm-hmm.
that don't play football and people that don't play basketball, and even some people that do play basketball and
Mm-hmm.
do play football. Like these guys are still affected to a certain extent. So like we just sit. I think the thing that's been sold is like, oh, this is all sunshine and rainbows, when the matter of the fact is that it's anything but when you actually drill down a little bit deeper.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say drill down a little bit deeper, I'm saying you get about one shovel in and you dig it up, and it's like, oh shit, there's rocks here.
Right.
Like we got to stop digging.
Right. It ain't gonna help us.
Yeah, we've already ran into trouble.
Yeah. If we got a snake, we got to chop the head off of.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think, and that to me is what, the joy of college sports is the ability to watch your college play. If the only games you can watch are the games that they play at home, and they only play, 7 games or 6 games at home, then that's sad. The college basketball situation is a little more. You get to see a little more of that. But we talked about baseball. I don't know how many people realize that, in some cases, almost, half of the starting lineup in some of these college baseball teams are not scholarship players. They're
Yeah.
walk-ons.
Yeah, especially for a lot of those lower level programs. Like
Yeah.
again, it's a misconception across sports that every athlete on this team is a scholarship athlete. That is far from the truth when you
Mm-hmm.
get down to a lot of these sports. So, like you're right, these lower level baseball programs, there's a lot of kids there that are going to be walk-ons.
Mm-hmm.
These Olympic sports at these non-power four schools, and I mean, and I say non-power four schools. I mean, you even get to some of these upper tier schools, and probably half have a scholarship the same way that a football player does on a Division I school. So yeah, again, there's a misconception about the way scholarships work in college athletics as well.
Well, there's also a misconception about scholarships being a full scholarship. Okay.
As well.
they will
There's different types.
offer, yeah, they'll offer a partial scholarship, let's say to a swimmer, a partial scholarship to maybe a golf kid or a tennis kid or even baseball. Okay. Because there's only so many scholarships they can give out.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole, and then let's go to the basketball and this is an argument I have with people all the time. There's a vast misconception of, oh well, they get a 4-year scholarship. Saying no, that's not how it works.
It's a year by year.
One scarce 1 year scholarship.
Yep.
And that scholarship can be taken away from you for reasons that you had nothing to do with you.
Yep.
You could have been playing like a fantastic player. Maybe you got bumped, in the knee. You had to sit out a few games.
Maybe they just recruited over you.
Right. Or you change coaches and that
Mhm.
system that you were in, that you thought you wanted to be in, ain't there no more.
Yep.
Okay. And maybe you don't. Maybe you're looking to the transfer portal, but there's nobody out there. What the other thing is, Matt, and you know this, following the whole thing. There's 3,000 kids that go into the transfer portal this year.
Yep. There's
a lot of those kids did not go to another school.
Yeah. There's what was the number? It was something in the lines of like of football players that entered the transfer portal. I think 1,200 of them did not find a second home.
Correct. Yeah, it was
And
actually it was on closer to 1,500.
yeah, and so what happens to those kids that enter this transfer portal that have been sold a false dream by maybe it's by a school, maybe it's by somebody that's a close relative of theirs, an aunt and uncle that got in contact with a different school and said, hey, they told me they were going to do such and such for you. Those are promises. That's not a verbal contract. It's not binding by any measure. So what happens to those kids? Do they stop playing the sport? In a lot of cases, yeah. There's like that. That's it. Like if you enter the portal as a freshman with thinking you're going somewhere else and nobody picks you up, guess what? You're probably done. Not only are you probably done, but now you're without an academic home as well.
Well,
so I mean, this thing can get real nasty when you get down into the weeds of it, and it's just not something that anybody, and when I say anybody, I mean anybody, ever thinks about.
Yeah, the other thing too is that you'll see a lot of the kids, the 1,500 or 1,300, whatever, they'll go to junior college because they have to have academics. So they'll go to the junior college for a year. They won't participate in sport because maybe some of these junior colleges they go to don't even have football. So there's that. And so then they come back out and they basically redshirted type a year. But even worse, they didn't have to get the practice with any of the players that they will, in a redshirt situation, you might be able to practice with. So it's a problem because it now is, they're so close to a professional model without the benefit of a players association or somebody to have their back.
Yep.
That that allows, and yeah, true. They're the portal is free agency every year.
Yep.
Understood. But just because it's there doesn't mean you're going to benefit from it.
Yeah, and look, nothing's perfect, right?
No,
Like
exactly.
nothing in life will ever be perfect, and this is obviously an imperfect model as well. There are people that definitely benefit and deserve the benefits that they gain from NIL, from conference realignment, from the transfer portal, and that's good. But again, it seems like it's only thought of as like this really positive thing for these players and this player empowerment movement, and it is in a lot of ways. But there's a lot of stuff on the backside of this thing that people just don't think about, and like you don't hear about as much, really, because it's not something that people want to hear about. I think, to be honest, like you don't want to hear the negative headlines. You don't want to hear about these kids not finding places to play because maybe you're enjoying the sports and the way things are right now. And that's fine. But there are very real downsides that people have to consider. And there's a reason that the government's trying to get involved. There's a reason that people talk about this system being broken right now, because it is. It's extremely broken. And there's a lot of bad stuff that goes on to a lot of people. Honestly, there's probably more people that suffer from this stuff than benefit from this stuff.
Right. Yeah, I think you're right. The I get I've gotten a bunch of folks who their kids are in high school right now, and they're good football players or good basketball players, and they're saying to me, "What do you think you need to do? What do we need to do to get Joey, Jeff, whatever?" Um, they're getting scholarship offers. What should you do? And I said, well, there's two ways to go look at this. The first way, and I'm going to go with it being the wrong way in my personal opinion, is if you feel you're that good, then go ahead and go to, if Michigan or Texas or one of those schools are looking at you, Georgia, whomever. All right, fine. If that's where you want to go and that's where you've always wanted to go, go. But if it were me, I would go to what I like to call cradle to grave school, right?
Mm-hmm.
Give me, we'll use the university, we'll use teams in Texas, for instance, because a lot of schools in Texas. If I had a kid and I was playing well,
Mm-hmm.
I would go to SMU or Baylor or
Go to Tulsa.
or Rice or Tulsa. You're going to stay there for the 4 years. You're going to get an education. But the reason I picked Rice or an SMU in Baylor is they're going to take care of you. You go there, you play 4 years, baby, you're locked. Okay. They're going to get you a job. You're going to roll out of that place with a college degree and a future. And if you want to play professional football and you played well, okay, cool. You got that. But if you didn't, okay, or if you go and you play maybe a year or two in the sport, great for you, but you still have that thing to fall back on, the cradle to grave concept. And I've told them also, go out and get first and foremost an accountant and a lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
Because those scholarships are contracts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They need to be looked at as a contract. And if you're supposedly or going to be, God forbid, if you're so good that they're going to throw money at you, you need an accountant who can tell you whether or not, what can we do with this money? Where do we put it to keep it from being taken away from us?
Yeah. And we talked about the transfer portal and how it can negatively affect these guys in terms of sometimes their academic careers and bouncing around and like there's stuff about how credits transfer, how close are you to finishing your degree, all that stuff factors in. Another big piece of this is when you bounce around from program to program in the portal, right? And talked about how that low percentage of people that make it professionally, right? Well, if you don't make it professionally, you're going to need a job and you're going to have to go out into the job market. The alumni base and the networking at a school that you've been at for a while is something that is extremely valuable. And it's something that you can't build if you're bouncing from program to program each year, trying to build something. Like it's something where you have these kids like TJ Finley a long time ago should have looked himself in the mirror and said, hey, brother, this thing's probably not going to work out for me. Maybe I should stick somewhere where I can play football, enjoy what I'm doing. Finish up my degree, have an alumni base, have a networking base that I can fall back on when this inevitably doesn't work out. Because when you're on 8 schools in like 8 years, where are you going to go?
Well, 7 of those schools don't even want to see you again. It's like you bolted from them, and the last place you're at, you've only played a year.
Yeah, you either bolted while the getting was good, like you did at Auburn to go to LSU, or you suck so much they don't ever want to see your face again in the place you were playing.
One of those, neither of those are good situations. So that's why I've always said, look, the chances of you going and playing professionally are very, very slim. And you may not want to hear that, and that's fine. Okay. But give me a cradle to grave school and I'm good. My youngest brother, coming out of high school, was drafted by the Texas Rangers, and he took a scholarship to the University of Tampa, and he did it because he said, "You know what? I like playing baseball, but I don't think I'm gonna make it to the major leagues."
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, they want to give me a contract. Yeah, they want to give me money. I'll tell you what, I would rather have my degree. I'd rather go play college ball, have some fun for 4 years, get my degree, and go on with my life because I don't want to be in the minor leagues in 29 years old.
Yeah. Yeah, and look, I think a lot of this comes down to as well is there's these are kids in high school.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can tell you, I mean, even now at 23, I'm not the best decision maker in the world
Mm-hmm.
at all. Like I got to lean on a lot of people around me when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to legitimate decisions that I'm going to make.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something where a lot of these kids are getting bad advice. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sitting here saying that these parents should like tell their kids to give up on their dreams. That's not
No,
what I'm
no.
asking them to do. What I'm asking them to do is be a little bit more realistic about the way things go. And if you're more realistic about the way things are and you take a more realistic approach to things, then you know what? Maybe you get to college and maybe you are fantastic and that's great and you're going to go on to the next level. That's fantastic. But
Mm-hmm.
the odds are ever in the favor of that's not going to happen. And you're better off, like you said, cradle to grave, finding somewhere and sticking there. And if for a lot of these kids, part of it is they just don't want to sit there and grind it out either.
Mm-hmm. Well, they've been told how good they are for so many years that you sit there and go, well, this is what so and so told me, and he knows a lot about that. And you're like, well, yeah, he does. I'm not
Hmm.
arguing that point. Okay, that point is not. I'm not pushing that. What I'm telling you is this: no matter how good you think you are
Hmm.
in
There's somebody
college, when you go and step on the campus of University of Georgia, and you're the top running back in your conference in high school, and man, nobody on the planet can touch you. Okay, then you're an 18-year-old kid. You step on campus at Georgia, and you get hit by a linebacker that basically knocks almost all your teeth out because you've never been hit that hard at that speed. And oh, by the way, as good as you are as a running back, there's five guys standing right next to you who will think they're exactly the same as you are, and three of them probably are better.
Yep. I mean, there's I can give you two examples right off the top of my head at the University of Georgia where that's happened.
Mhm.
Is you go back to when Keith Marshall and Todd Gurley were sharing a backfield. Keith
Mhm.
Marshall came to the University of Georgia. He was the number one running back in the country. He was a
Mhm.
five-star, fantastic athlete. He was
Yeah.
a really good running back when he wasn't hurt.
Mhm.
And he got in there and he shared a running back room with a kid out of North Carolina named Todd Gurley.
Mhm.
Guess what? Guess who started?
Right.
It was the four-star from North Carolina.
Right.
Guess what? You can turn around a couple years later, five-star number one running back in the country, Sonny Michel
Mhm.
comes on campus. Man,
Right.
he tore up every drill at those high school combines
Mhm.
that he could. He gets to campus. He was fantastic. All American in high school. There's some kid from Chubbtown, Georgia. He's a four-star. Yeah, I mean, he's a little bowling ball. Guess who's
Right.
playing? It's number 27, and
Right.
he sustained a little bit longer in the NFL too. So yeah, you can be that good. Like these kids are that good in high school,
Mhm.
but just because you're that good in high school doesn't guarantee you that you're going to be that good at the next level. The same way, just because you're great in college doesn't guarantee that you're going to be that good at the next
Mhm.
level after that either. So
Right.
it's just not something that people think about. And when you break it down to a smaller scale thing, is you may be the best athlete in your school,
Mhm.
but if you're in a suburb, you ain't seen nothing like the inner city can
Mhm.
produce in terms of their programs as well. Like there's so many out there that can at the least match you in what you're
Mhm.
doing, unless you're like a state champion in your sport.
Well, even if you get there, you
Yeah.
know, I've seen um, I've seen state champions in Florida where the kids are the best, and all of a sudden, guess what? You know, they're the next job you see them at is basically, do you want fries with that? It's not what you think, and
Hmm.
that's where I try to say to parents and people like that, look, do not don't. don't discourage your kid from playing. Okay, if that's what they want to do and you support them, that's wonderful. But you have to have Plan B,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why the cradle grave thing to me is much more important. Because there's nothing says if you go to SMU or you go, and I use SMU, but it doesn't have to be. It can be anybody um, that has that kind of cradle to grave. Usually, it's a private school. Let's be
Mm-hmm.
honest, it is. But first of all, academically, it means something, and it doesn't mean you still can't play professional football. There's guys from Harvard playing professional football.
Yep.
So
Yeah. If you're
um,
that good, it's going to prove out regardless of
yeah.
where you're at.
Mhm. And look at the kid. Who was it? Oh, Florida. Yeah, Florida's got a kid who was Player of the Year in the Ivy Leagues 2 years in a row.
Sabian Lee. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's playing. He's more of a point forward. I mean, he's taller than a point guard, but he definitely he handles the ball well.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're good, you're good.
Yep.
Okay, but it's important to be wise as to what you do with that talent that you have, and understand that things have gotten so. You know, I've even told kids to take communications classes so you learn how to speak so you can and they think it's for interviews, and I'm like, no, 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 this is not for the interview. This is so that the coach is going to sit there and he's going to talk to you, and they're going to hand you a book, and that book might as well be in Mandarin Chinese because you don't know what it means, and that playbook has to be studied, and so you need to be able to present yourself to the university to get in, and eventually present yourself to if you're lucky, interviews. But more importantly, you need to be able to to be smart, and to be the concept of the dumb athlete isn't there anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot survive in athletics by not being smart in some way, shape, or form.
They'll eat you alive.
Yep. Well, now that we've done a really lovely job of post of making sure people understand what to do when they go into college, one way or the other. That's a public service announcement. We hope that you all take notes on it. Um, I think the fun part's coming up. Why don't you give us? You got some baseball setups for us for the World Baseball Classic this week?
Yeah, some. So Japan just, I mean, they just went and whacked Chinese Taipei.
Mhm.
I believe it was this morning at like 5 a.m. again. So there's that. They won 13-0. Currently, Cuba's up 3-1 on Panama.
Mm.
Venezuela's up 2-1 on the Netherlands, and Mexico and Great Britain are in the top of the first, 2 outs, 0-0.
Mm.
Later tonight, Puerto Rico and Colombia play in the Pool A game at 6 p.m. on FS1. That will be followed by Nicaragua playing the Dominican Republic at 7 p.m. on FS2. The United States plays Brazil at 8 on Fox, and Chinese Taipei and Czechia play at 10 p.m. on FS2. If you're
Mm.
going to watch a game, I would not recommend that 10 p.m. game. Both of those teams are 0-2 in their pool play. You will not be seeing much more of them.
Yeah, why
Japan,
waste the energy?
yeah. Japan, I mean, good Lord, is their offense good. Netherlands and Venezuela, who's on right now, I think that's a really good matchup. Both those teams have a good amount of professional talent. The Netherlands have Drew Jones, the son of Andrew Jones, who is their coach. And then you go over to Venezuela, and Venezuela is loaded with a lot of major league talent as well. They've got Salvador Perez, their captain. They've got William Abreu,
Mhm.
Ronald Acuna, a lot of talent for Venezuela. So, but both those teams are really good, really talented in terms of the
Mhm.
major league talent that you're going to be able to watch there. Interesting to see, but now we finally have these full slates of these World Baseball Classic games,
Mhm.
which is much better than just watching Chinese Taipei and Australia play at 5 a.m.
Right. Yeah,
on
that's
repeat, feeling seemingly.
much better. Let me run through. Today's a great day for college basketball. The Missouri Valley quarterfinal game just got underway, and that is Drake against Belmont. You can watch that on the Mountain. MVC TV network, which is Gray Net. It's Gray TV basically. You can catch those games on. There's an app which is the MVC Mountain MVC television network, so you can catch it on that app. That's the quarterfinal game. The other quarterfinal game is going to tip off at 3:30, and that's UIC and Murray State. Dayton is taking on VCU at 7 o'clock. It's not that's not a tournament game, but it's setting up to the tournament because the tournament starts next week for them. Same for Northern Illinois and Akron from the MAC. That's a 7 o'clock game on CBSN. The quarterfinals in the Missouri Valley Conference game, Valparaiso and Bradley play tonight. Again, that's on the MVC network. Ohio Valley semifinal game is on ESPNU. That's at 8 o'clock. That's UT Martin and Tennessee State. A big game for UCF tonight is before the Big 12 conference tournament gets underway. They're at West Virginia, 8 o'clock on CBSN. John Sidekak and BJ Thomas on that call. Miami of Ohio, who has not lost yet, takes on Ohio tonight. That's a 9 p.m. tip for ESPN2. FS1 has St. John's, the 24th ranked team in the country, against Seton Hall. That's a 9 p.m. tip on FS1. Second round of the West Coast Conference tournament, Portland and Washington State. That's an ESPN Plus game. Missouri Valley quarterfinal, Northern Illinois and Illinois State. That's again 9:30, same place, MVC TV. The Ohio Valley semifinal has Southeast Missouri State and Morehead State. And then the second round of the WCC has San Diego at Seattle. And then, of course, there's the UNLV game. This is the Mountain West Conference. UNLV at San Diego State. That could be a good game to watch at 10:30 on CBSN. Tomorrow, I'm trying to fly through this and see if there's anything to watch tomorrow. On basketball, you've got Houston and Oklahoma State on CBS at 12. Virginia Tech and Virginia, that's on the CW at 12. Arkansas, Missouri, that's at 12 on ESPN. Let's scroll down here, we'll see if there's anybody else that's playing. Connecticut, so UConn is at Marquette, that's on Fox at 12:30. Just scrolling down here. I mean, there's a ton of games. It's just what ones make any sense to watch. Georgia, Mississippi State. That's a 4 o'clock game on the SEC network. Florida, Kentucky. That's a 4 o'clock game on ESPN.
There you go.
St. Louis and Mason. That game is at 4 p.m. on USA Network. Pretty much. Well, they got Arizona, Colorado. That shouldn't be much of a game. It's 11 o'clock tip on ESPN2. I don't know that Colorado's going to give Arizona much of a game. And they got USC and UCLA on Fox at FS1 at 9 o'clock. So that's a rivalry game, but I don't know that SC can hang with them. But that's your basketball that I can show you here for tonight and tomorrow. So a lot of stuff going on. You got the leaderboard up there, bud, and we can check in real quick on what's going on in golf.
Yeah, Daniel Berger, currently your leader. Colin Morikawa has just gotten underway. He's 1 under through 1. The Arnold Palmer Invitational, it's a signature event. It's one of the signature events that does have a cut. So their cut is going to work the same way that Riviera's cut, the Genesis Invitational, a couple weeks ago worked. It's going to be worse than 10 back of the lead. That's where your cut's going to be. So a lot of these guys are going to be hanging on, kind of watching the way that Daniel Berger plays, because right now he's sitting at 11 under. So your cut's at 1 over. Guys outside of that cut, there's some big names: Jason Day, Sam Burns, Keegan Bradley, Justin Thomas, JJ Spawn, Nico Echeverria, who won the Cognizant last week. I think Justin Thomas deserves a bit of a grain of salt. He's coming back from this is the first event he's played in since his microdiscopy, I believe at the end of last year, towards the end of last year. So he's having a rough go. He's 14 over. I mean, he's out there struggling. He's fighting it, but yeah, really good golf playing. Shane Lowry's another guy who's outside of the cut line right now. But that cut line can change drastically if Daniel Berger were to put up a round similar to that he had yesterday, which he fired a 9 under yesterday. It was really kind of a unexpected round, I would say, given the name. I say that as I'm talking, the cut moved to 2 over, so he dropped a stroke. Yeah, he played insanely well yesterday. You would assume that that's probably not going to happen again today. So you're probably going to get – it's not going to be your normal cut where you're cutting half the field. You're probably going to cut somewhere in the neighborhood of like maybe a quarter of the field.
Well, and Bay Hill is always one of those places that's fun to watch games, to watch the tournament.
Yeah,
it's always a challenge, and it should be fun to enjoy.
Yeah, and Colin Morikawa is sitting at I mentioned him. He's at 1 under through 1. He's at 7 under. So it is. I'm very curious to continue watching him. He won at Pebble a couple weeks ago. He really has played better since he switched his putter, and he switched from a blade to that spider. It's one of the mallet putters, or I think they're used by like 9 of the top 10 in the OWGR. So it's something that's helped him a lot. It's something that Brooks Koepka tried, and it helped him last week at the Cognizant as well, as he's gotten more comfortable with it. It's an interesting trend in terms of the golf equipment.
Yeah. We'll keep watching on the putter situation, because you want to see, it's funny how some clubs can really help you out, and certainly that has done well for them. So we'll go from there. All right, well, we've given you the full slate of sports here for the week. There's always opportunity, by the way, this weekend to not just watch the Major League Baseball Classic, but also there's spring training, so you can catch some of that, and some serious. We talked about the college basketball. There's going to be some very important seeding situations coming up for games this weekend, because the big boys get started next week.
Yeah, seeding in terms of conference tournaments and seedings in terms of big tournament as well.
Yeah, I know that we just talked about Florida playing Kentucky. Florida's right now sitting on the 4 line, and they're good if they can go in a situation, make that work. I'll be interested in seeing. We talked about USC and UCLA, and you talked about UCLA. If the Pac-12 were still around, they'd be in great shape. And so, let's see how what happens with the SC if they can beat them. How does that help them out going into the conference? So there's a lot of intrigue left in pretty much most of these conferences. Even though 1 or 2 may be in first place or not.
Yeah.
Before we get out of here, there you go, folks. If you need a home in Georgia or anywhere in the Southeast, give a call to our buddy Zach Bobo. He's a supporter and somebody we want to say hello to and thank him all the time, because without him, it's tough to do shows. So thank you, Zach. Appreciate it. All right, my friend. Any final thoughts before we bounce here on a Friday afternoon?
Final thoughts. Let's see. So 2 things. One, Michigan survived a scare last night against Iowa. I thought that was interesting, especially the way they handled I talked about a couple weeks ago the way they handled Purdue, and then they were playing Illinois and they handled them as well. Thought it was interesting that Iowa was the team that gave them the scare out of their
When
games.
they play?
They played at Iowa.
Okay.
And then also Miami of Ohio, they've been a hotly discussed topic. They're still undefeated. You mentioned it's less about them and more about, good God, I'm tired of seeing Bruce Pearl on everything talking about trying to get his son into the NCAA tournament. Like, Jesus Christ, man, just shut up.
Yeah. Just do the analysis and let the rest of it fall where it is.
Yeah, it's not even analysis. It's just pure bias at this point. Like, and he says it as such. He's like, "Do I want Auburn to get in the tournament? Yes. Did I help my son get the job because of nepotism? Yes." Like, those are words that came out of his mouth this week. So it's just I'm tired of hearing him. I didn't like hearing from him when he was a head basketball coach. I don't like hearing from him now.
Well, it's funny. Real quick story about when Al McGuire was coaching at Marquette. And he had Butch Thomas on the team, who was at the time a pretty darn good guard. But Allie, his son, was starting before him. So Butch came up to him one day and said, "Coach, I'm working hard. What can I do to get in the front, ahead of Allie?" Because he points up in the stands to his wife and goes, "Go up there and convince her you're a better basketball player than my son." So it's not something that Bruce has done it, but it's anytime you end up with a son who's on the same basketball team as you, and your name is not Maravich, you definitely have you're going to have conflicting situations on what happens when you go home versus what happens on the court. So
yeah,
it happens, but I don't know. We'll see how Auburn makes it. We'll see if they can get there or not, but
I hope they get blown out on Saturday.
Well, I'm not holding out hope that they're cutting down any nets at the end of the tournaments this time around. So
yeah,
we'll see. But anyway, everybody have a great weekend. Matthew, you have a good weekend, and we'll catch you on Monday.